Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still playing out the retest for this bullish breakout as one of the largest Bitcoin whales in the world just bought more Bitcoin, which I'll talk about in just a moment, alongside more liquidity that is building above the current price of Bitcoin in the short term that we need to pay attention to, while the price of Solana is still playing out this bullish divergence, and the price of Chainlink is doing the same as well. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before we take a look at the Bitcoin charts today, taking a look at some Bitcoin news today, because just a matter of hours ago, over the last one day, Michael Saylor has just announced that Strategy, previously known as MicroStrategy, has just acquired more Bitcoin. This time around, they bought almost $300 million worth of Bitcoin. And so as we can see here, Strategy bought 3,459 Bitcoin for, once again, almost 300 million, around 285 million US dollars at an average price of around 82.6k per Bitcoin. And so this means that Strategy now holds over 531,000 Bitcoin that they acquired for a total of almost 36 billion US dollars. But right now, that Bitcoin that they're holding is worth a lot more than just 36 billion. And so obviously this shows us that Strategy and Michael Saylor, one of the biggest whales in the world once again, is continuing to buy more and more Bitcoin despite what happens to the price of Bitcoin. Whether Bitcoin is pumping or dumping, Strategy is pretty much always trying to buy more Bitcoin. And in case you're new to all of this, it's important to understand that these buys right here, these purchases, don't necessarily have an immediate impact on the price of Bitcoin, because oftentimes they're basically over the counter, so they don't really have an immediate impact on the price of Bitcoin. But considering the size that this is getting to, obviously we're talking about over 500,000 Bitcoin now owned by Strategy, and considering the fact that Bitcoin is obviously a very scarce asset, it has a strict limited supply of a maximum of 21 million, but out of that 21 million, obviously a bunch of Bitcoin are lost and a bunch of Bitcoin are already held by people that are not going to sell. And so in reality, there's not all that much Bitcoin to go around, maybe just a few million Bitcoin in circulation that's really being traded around. So obviously this is actually getting to quite a decent portion of the supply of Bitcoin. And so this means that while these purchases might not necessarily have an immediate impact on the price of Bitcoin, over the long term, as this amount of Bitcoin grows by Strategy and other Bitcoin holders that are just not going to sell this Bitcoin, this will ultimately force the price of Bitcoin towards the upside over the long term, as there's less and less Bitcoin to go around. So anyone that wants to buy Bitcoin have to bid higher prices for the limited amount of Bitcoin available. And so just keep this in mind. Fundamentally speaking, Bitcoin is looking very bullish over the long term, pretty much as always. If we're talking about a period of multiple years, for example, 4 or 5 years plus, Bitcoin is always pretty much looking extremely bullish. Obviously, from time to time, we see crashes and bear markets, but if you simply just zoom out looking at the bigger picture, Bitcoin has a long-term bullish future, at least in my opinion. But with that being said, taking a look at this 4-day Bitcoin chart, and technically speaking, the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, so not much has changed on this chart over the last one day. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, obviously over the last one day, we did just confirm a weekly candle close. And so this is now officially confirmed, the first weekly candle of this entire bearish crossover right here, where we've actually now officially confirmed a decline in bearish momentum. Obviously, already for the last few weeks, for almost a month now, we've been slowing down the amount of bearish momentum, but we've now officially began the decline in bearish momentum. In other words, we're moving towards a possible bullish crossover. And now obviously at this rate, considering it's on the weekly time frame, we're still most likely at minimum a number of weeks away, possibly longer, possibly another month or multiple months, but at minimum we're still at least another couple of weeks away from potentially a new bullish crossover. But either way, this is telling us that potentially the worst is already behind us for this bearish movement. As I've already been saying in recent weeks here on the channel, I've been comparing this stage in the price of Bitcoin to around around July 2024. It's looking very similar to what we saw back then, at least based on this chart right here. And if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin chart, technically speaking, we still have a massive bearish divergence on the weekly time frame, telling us that at least for now, we should not be expecting any significant bullish momentum towards the upside here on the larger time frames. So honestly, not much has changed on this chart over the last one day. And if we're taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin price chart, right now the price of Bitcoin is still running into this area of resistance, sitting in between around 86,000 to 88,000. And so obviously, at least for now, that is still the resistance to pay attention to, especially at close towards 88,000. We've seen many rejections from that level over recent weeks and months. But if we can finally see a confirmed breakout with at least a daily candle close, but ideally a 3-day candle close above 88,000 and actually hold that as support, in that situation, the next point of resistance I'll be watching is sitting at close to 92,000 based on previous support becoming new resistance. And above that, I'll be watching around 96 to 97,000 based on this volume profile indicator. And we still have a possible double bottom pattern or W pattern here in the price of Bitcoin. But ultimately, in order to confirm this and confirm a bullish price target towards the upside, obviously we need to break out above this area of resistance, once again in between 86,000 to 88,000. And as for support, we still have a lot of support at just above 78,000, close to 78k, and also significant support starting at close to 74,000, which is almost exactly where we recently bounced from. And so not a lot has changed on this chart over the last one day. And just before taking a look at some other important Bitcoin price charts today, first, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I'm taking a lot of my crypto trades over on 2bit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can claim some massive trading bonuses, like for example, up to $50,000 in trading rewards. And if you're not one of these larger traders here, you can still get a $30 sign up bonus using the link below this video, and also an exclusive 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT. So for example, if you deposit $1,000, you get a $200 bonus, but only if you use that link to 2bit. And on top of all of that, if you use the link below this video, you're automatically upgraded to VIP level 1 trading fees, which basically means you get a massive discount on trading fees. You get lowered trading fees over on 2bit, but remember, only if you use that link. So if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link below this video. And in case you're wondering, 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNX as another option out there, another exchange that I also trade on. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video. And if you use that link, you can get an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees on BTNX forever. That is a lifetime discount on your BTNX account. But once again, that's only available if you use that link below this video. And in case you're wondering, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a look at this Bitcoin price chart on the daily time frame, and right now, and obviously over the last few days, we saw that breakout towards the upside above this descending line of resistance, which at that time of the breakout was sitting at close towards around 83,500, but right now it's sitting at closer towards around 83,000. And since that confirmed breakout just a couple of days ago with that daily candle close, obviously, like I explained in my last video, we're seeing a slight retracement coming in for a retesting previous resistance to possibly flip it into new support. And at least so far, as of recording this video, this has now flipped into new support. We are currently seeing at least a short-term bounce from this level, which is good to see, at least in the short term. Now, obviously, we still don't necessarily have a massive amount of bullish momentum. Like I've been saying, once again, don't necessarily expect significant bullish momentum based on this weekly time frame. So overall, once again, we need to take a look at all of these charts to figure out what is most likely going to happen. So just in the immediate short term, technically with this breakout, we are looking bullish, just not necessarily showing a massive amount of bullish momentum. And obviously the price of Bitcoin will still likely struggle around these key points of resistance along the way towards the upside. And of course, something else that is helping the price of Bitcoin in the shorter term is this bullish divergence on the daily Bitcoin price chart, with lower lows confirmed in the price in the candle closes and higher lows confirmed in the daily Bitcoin RSI, meaning we're most likely going to see a short-term bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action. So basically a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action most likely for a couple of weeks, give or take. And obviously already this has been playing out for close to 1 week now. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, we can see just in the short term, a lot of liquidity is now starting to build just above the current price of Bitcoin, mainly sitting at just above 86,000, more specifically around 86.2K to 86.4K approximately. And so just keep that in mind. Usually, not always, but usually the price of Bitcoin tends to move towards where there's a lot of liquidity. So once again, it is quite likely the price could perhaps hit just above 86,000 to wipe out that liquidity, wiping out short positions. But remember, if we do see another little push higher to wipe out that liquidity at around 86 to 87,000, once again, we still have resistance around there, leading all the way up towards 88,000 that we cannot ignore. So until we see a breakout above 88,000, we cannot really flip overly bullish again, at least in the short term. Obviously, we can see some short-term bullish price action perhaps into this area, but then expect the price to struggle quite likely around this area. And if we're taking a look at the price of Ethereum on the weekly time frame, right now the price of ETH is still perfectly playing out the bounce from this area of support, sitting in between around 1.4K to 1550. So obviously we still have a lot of support at roughly 1,500 based on previous significant support. And as I always say, usually the price of ETH follows similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So in other words, if Bitcoin continues to play out a short-term bullish relief as it has been doing recently, that can help the price of ETH in the short term with a bit of a bounce from this support. And so honestly, if you hold or trade Ethereum, definitely pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing to figure out what is likely going to happen for Ethereum. But technically speaking, whatever happens here in the shorter term over the next few days or weeks, at least for now, Ethereum is technically still within a larger bearish trend here on the weekly time frame, also known as a bear market. But with that being said, taking a look at the price of Solana on the weekly time frame, and right now Solana is getting extremely close to breaking out back above this previous area of support, which in the short term here for the last week, give or take, has been acting as resistance, and that's sitting in between around 120 to 130. And once again, over the last 1 day, we did indeed see that weekly candle close confirm, but it confirmed when the price was just below 130, which means technically speaking, at least on the weekly time frame, we've not yet actually confirmed a breakout back above this area. And so just keep that in mind. There's still the possibility that we could still struggle around this area on the price chart at give or take around 130. But ultimately, if we're zooming into the daily time frame, obviously, at least for now and almost for 1 week now, we've been playing out a short-term bullish divergence, as I've been talking about since all the way back down here, telling you we're most likely going to see a short-term bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of choppy sideways price action as the most common outcomes from a bullish divergence. So obviously that's still perfectly playing out as expected and will likely play out at least for the next few days, but most likely over the next 1 week, give or take, as the most likely scenario here in the shorter term. And as for potential points of resistance to watch out for as the bullish divergence continues to play out, I'll be watching around 135 to 136 based on these highs right here acting as resistance, and also a lot of resistance at approximately 145, give or take. And if we're taking a look at the price of XRP on the 3-day time frame, technically speaking, the larger bearish divergence is still perfectly playing out, as I've been saying for a long time now on the channel, since much higher prices. So not much has changed on this XRP chart over the last 1 day. And if we're taking a look at the 12-hour time frame, technically speaking, on this chart, the price of XRP is still within the descending parallel channel, which is effectively a bearish trend. But obviously, as I've been saying a lot recently here on the channel, of course, during a bearish trend, we can see the occasional short-term bullish relief and bounce from support and things like that. And that's exactly what's currently playing out and what has been playing out for almost 1 week now. Once again, just in the short term, alongside Bitcoin playing out its short-term bullish relief. And so, as I always say, definitely keep an eye on what Bitcoin is doing to figure out what is most likely going to happen for XRP and a lot of the major altcoins. So obviously, once again, if Bitcoin continues to play out this bullish divergence, that can help the price of XRP in the short term. And as for potential points of resistance to watch out for, I'll be watching at close to $2.20. Honestly, we have found a lot of resistance recently at close to $2.20, but if we see a further relief here, further breakout above that level, in that case we'll likely find a lot of resistance at approximately $2.44 to $2.45, give or take, and more resistance at around $2.55 to $2.56. And in the meantime, the price is simply just hanging around the center line for the descending parallel channel, which is sitting at approximately $2.13. So in the short term, that's acting as a bit of support and a resistance, basically drawing the price towards that level. And if we're taking a quick look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, of course, Chainlink is still actively playing out the bullish divergence as I've been talking about. Of course, we already previously confirmed lower lows in the price in the candle closes and higher lows confirmed in the daily Chainlink RSI, meaning we're most likely going to see a short-term bullish relief, or at the very least a bit of a sideways consolidation, so a break or a relief from all of this bearish price action here, but not necessarily the end of this bearish trend. So at least for now, technically the larger trend is still clearly bearish. At least for now, we're still forming lower highs and lower lows, which is technically what a bearish trend is. And as for support and resistance to watch out for, we still have significant support at close to $10, and we have a bit of short-term support and resistance sitting at this level, sitting at around $12.70 to $12.90. So in the high $12 area, basically the price is struggling quite a lot around there. But if we see a further breakout and actually start holding above $13, in that situation, the next significant point of resistance towards the upside is sitting in between around $14.90 to $15.50. So at roughly around $15 as the next major point of resistance. And in the meantime, would also likely find a small amount of resistance at just above $14, around $14.10. And so that's what I expect in the imminent short term here for the price of Chainlink. And of course, the larger trend has not changed. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, you can profit from all of that price action by watching these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.